Hello everyone. Today I am going to take research design. Before that, what is the meaning for research design? See, research design, it is nothing but defining the research problem is the preparation of research project design. It is known as research design. The decisions regarding what, where, when, how much and what means concerning an inquiry or a research study constitutes a research design. Listen, where, when, how much and what is the meaning for the research design. It concerns in inquiry or a research study, it constitutes a research design. In another definition, research design is the arrangement of conditions for collection of data and analysis of data. First of all, collection of data and analysis of data. What is the main aim means? It combines relevance to the research purpose with the economy in procedure. This is the nice definition for the research design. That is arrangement of data. See what we are collecting and how we can analyze it. Okay, well, next stop. What is the research design? It is nothing but it is a conceptual structure within which research is conducted. That is the research design. See, the research design, it constitutes the blueprint for data collection and measurement, and it also includes analysis. See, data collection, measurement and analysis. So this type of research design, it includes an outline of what the researchers will do from writing the hypothesis, and it is operational implications to the final data analysis. So more explicitly, the decisions happen to be in respect of the these are all the various questions related to the research design. First, what is the study about? See, the study about means that is research design. What it should be included, or what is the study about? Next, why is the study being made? What is the reason or why the study is being made? Next, where will the study be carried out? Where will be the study be carried out? And what type of data is required? Whether it is this research design requires primary or secondary data. So, what type of data is required for the analysis or collection of data? Next, where can the required data be found? Where can be the data be found? Next, the time period. That is, what periods of time will study included? Okay, this related study, the time periods is how long the time periods, whether 1 year or 2 years or 5 years. Next, what will be the sample design? Okay, what type of sample is collected for the data analysis, and what techniques of data collection will be used. And another one, how will the data be analyzed? What type of techniques we use to collect and analysis of data. Next, in what style will the report to be prepared? These are the various questions related to the research design. Say, keeping in view the above stated design decisions, one may split the overall research design into the following parts. There are first one, sampling design, second one, observational design, and third one, statistical design and operational design. The first one, the sampling design. See, what is sampling design or what it deals of? See, sampling design which deals with the method of selecting items to be observed for the given study. Okay. Next, the observational design which relates to the conditions under which the observations are to be made. This is the observational design. Next, statistical design. What do you mean by statistical design? See, the statistical design, it concerns with which the questions of how many items are to be observed in the data collection, and how the information and the data gathered are to be analyzed. Next, what is the operational design? It is nothing but it deals with which techniques by which the procedures specified in the sampling and statistical, whether statistical and observational designs can be carried out. Next, what are the features or characteristics of research design? See, the first one, it is a plan, that is research design, it is a plan that specifies the sources and types of information relevant to the research problem. It must be relevant to the research problem. Second one, it is a strategy specifying which approach will be used for gathering and analyzing the data. See what type of approach we used. Next, it also includes the time and cost budgets, since most studies are done under these two conditions or under the two conditions. The first one, research design must at least it contain clear statement. It must be precise. So, clear statement of the research problem. And second condition, procedures and techniques to be used for gathering the information. Okay. Next, the population to be studied and what method to be used in processing and analyzing data. So, these are the features. Next, research design is needed. Why? Because it facilitates the smooth sailing of the various research operations, thereby making research as efficient possible, yielding maximum information with minimal expenditure. That is, maximum information with minimum expenditure of effort, just for time and money. So, just as for better or economical and attractive construction of a house, we need a blueprint, that is plan, or it is commonly called the map of the house. So, as well as thought out, prepared by an expert or architect. Similarly, we need a research design or plan in advance of data collection and analysis for our research project. That is a research design. See, the research design stands for planning the methods to be adapted for collecting the relevant data and the techniques to be used in their analysis. So, keeping in view the objectives of the research and availability of staff, time and money. Next, what are the features of good design? Already you have seen general features of research design. Next, what are the features of good research design? So, a good design is often characterized by adjectives. See, what are the adjectives? Like flexible, okay. Next, appropriate, efficient, economical, and so on. So, generally, the research design that minimize the bias and maximize the reliability of the data collected and analyzed is considered a good design. That means what? So, one of the main features, it means of obtaining information, that is correct information or true information. Next, the availability of skills of the researchers and the staffs, if any. Next, the objective of the problem to be studied. Next, what type of nature of the problem to be studied, and the availability of time and money for the research work. Next, what are the concepts relating to research design? First one, there are different concepts. The first one, dependent and independent variables. So, a concept which can take on different quantities, values, like it is called different quantitative values are called variables. Such concepts like weight, height, income are all the examples for variables. So, qualitative phenomena are the attributes. It also quantified, it is based on the presence or absence of the concerning attributes. So, the phenomenon which can take quantitatively different values, even if decimal points, are called continuous variables. but all variables are not continuous. Some it may be interrupted if they can only be expressed in integer values, that is, they are in a non-continuous variables or in statistical languages or discrete variables. For example, age is a continuous variable, but the number of children is an example for non-continuous variables. Next one, extraneous variables. What does mean the extraneous variables? It is the independent variables that are not related to the purpose of the study, but it may affect the dependent variable are termed as extraneous variable. For example, suppose the researcher wants to test the hypothesis that there is a relationship between children's gains in social studies and achievements and their self-concepts. See, third one, control. See, it is one of the important characteristics of good design is to minimize the influence or the effect of extraneous variables. The technical term is called control, is used when we design of the study. Next, minimizing the effects of extraneous independent variables. In experimental research, the term control is used to refer the restraining experimental conditions. Next, confounder relationship. See, it is when the independent variable is not free from the influence of extraneous variables, the relationship between the dependent and independent variables is said to be confounded by an extraneous variable or variables. Next, important one, the research hypothesis. When a prediction or hypothesis relationship is to be tested by scientific methods, it is termed as research hypothesis. So, the research hypothesis is a predictive statement that relates an independent variable to a dependent variable. Usually, the research hypothesis must contain at least one independent and one dependent variable. It is the predictive statement which are not to be objectively verified or the relationship that are assumed but not to be tested are not termed as research hypothesis. Next, the experimental and non-experimental hypothesis. This is also the testing research. What is the main purpose of this type of research design means? The research is to test the research hypothesis. It also termed as hypothesis testing, or it can be of the experimental design or of the non-experimental design. So, research in which the independent variable is manipulated in terms, it is termed as experimental hypothesis testing research, and a research in which an independent variable is not manipulated is called a non-experimental hypothesis testing research. Next one, experimental and control groups. See, what is experimental and control groups? It is an experimental hypothesis testing research when a group is exposed to usual conditions. It is termed as control group. But when the group is exposed to some novel or special condition, it is termed as experimental group. Next one, treatments. See, treatment, it is the different conditions under which experimental and control groups are put are usually referred to as treatments. In the illustration taken above, there are two treatments or the usual studies, programs and the special studies. Next, experiment. The process of examining the truth or fact of a statistical hypothesis. See, the statistical hypothesis is relating to some research problem. It is also known as experiment. For example, we can conduct an experiment to examine the usefulness of a certain newly developed drugs. Okay, so the experiments can be of two types: absolute experiment and comparative experiment. So, if you want to determine the impact of fertilizer on the yield of crop, it is case of absolute experiment. But if we want to determine the impact of one fertilizer as compared to the impact of some other fertilizer, our experiment, then it will be termed as comparative experiment. Next, experimental unit or units. So it is nothing but it is predetermined plots or the blocks where different treatments are, it is known as experimental unit. So such experimental units must be selected very carefully. Next, research design in case of exploratory research studies. See, generally, the exploratory research studies are also termed as formulative research studies. The main purpose of such studies is that of formulating a problem for more precise investigation or of developing the working hypothesis from an operational point of view. Generally, the following three methods in the context of research design for such studies are talked about: the survey of concerning literature, the experience survey, and the analysis of insight stimulating examples. The experience survey, that means the survey of people who have had practical experience with the problem to be studied. The main objectives of the survey is to obtain insight into the relationship between variables and new ideas relating to research problem. For such, the survey who are competent and can contribute new ideas may be carefully selected as respondent to ensure a representation of different types of experience. The respondents so selected will then be interviewed by the investigator. So the researcher must prepare an interview schedule for the systematic question of interviews. But the interview must ensure flexibility in the sense that the respondent should be allowed to raise issues and questions which the investigator has not previously considered. Next, research design in case of descriptive and diagnostic research studies. So, first one, descriptive research studies are those studies which are concerned with describing the characteristics of a particular individual or of a group, whereas the diagnostic research studies determine the frequency with which something occurs or its association with something else. Next, the research design in such studies must be rigid and not flexible and must focus the attention of the following. First one, what steps we have to follow means formulating the objective of the study. See what the study is about and why is it being made. Next, designing the methods of data collection. See, that means it is what techniques of gathering data will be adapted. Next, selecting the sample, that is how much material will be needed. Next, collecting the data. Where can the required data be found and with what period should the data be related? Next one, processing and analysis of data and reporting the findings. Research design in case of hypothesis testing research studies. See, what is hypothesis testing? See, hypothesis testing research studies is generally known as experimental studies, are those which where the researcher tests the hypothesis of causal relationship between two variables. So, such studies require procedures that will not only reduce bias and increase reliability, but will permit drawing inferences about causality. Next, what are the basic principles of experimental designs? Professor Fisher has enumerated three principles of experimental designs. See, first one, the principle of replication. Next, the principle of randomization and the principle of local control. See, first one, principle of replication. Say, the experiment should be repeated more than once. So, this type of treatment is applied in many experimental units instead of one by doing So the statistical accuracy of the experiments is increased. For example, suppose we are to examine the effect of two variables of price. For this purpose, we may divide the field into two parts and grow in one variety in one part and the other variety in other part. So we can then compare the yield of the two parts and draw the conclusion on the basis. But if we are to apply the principles of replication to this experiment, then we first divide the field into several parts, grow one variety in half of these parts and the other variety in the remaining parts. We can then collect the data of yield of two varieties and draw conclusion by comparing the same. Next, principle of randomization. It provides protection when we experiment against the effects of extraneous factors by randomization, or in other words, this principle indicates what we should design or plan the experiment in such a way that the variations caused by the extraneous factors can all be combined under the general heading of the chance. For instance, if we grow one variety of seed, rice, say in the first half of the parts of the field, and the other variety of rice is grown in the other half, and then it is just possible that the soil fertility may be different in the first half in the comparison to the other half. So this is so our results would not be realistic. Next, principle of local control. It is another important principle of experimental design. Under this, the extraneous factor, it is known as the source of variability, is made to vary deliberately over a wide range as necessary, and this needs to be done in such a way that the availability of causes can be measured and hence eliminated from the experimental error. So that means that we should plan the experiment in a manner that we can perform in a two-way analysis of variance, in which the total variability of the data is divided into three components: attributed to treatments, varieties of rice in our case, the extraneous factor soil fertility in our case, and the experimental error in some important experimental designs. See, the first one, the experimental design refers to framework or structure of an experiment, and such there are several experimental designs, that is formal, informal, before and after without control design, after only with control design, before and after with control design, before and after without control design, formal experimental design, completely randomized design, that is VR design, and a randomized block design, that is RB design, and the Latin square design, factorial designs. See, after only and the control design, there are two groups of areas. Test area and control area are selected, and the treatment is introduced into the test area only. The dependent variable is then measured in both the areas at the same time. Treatment impact is assessed by subtracting the value of the dependent variable in the control area from its value in the test area. See, before and after with the control design, it is in this design, two areas are selected and the dependent variable is measured in both the areas for an identical time period before the treatment. The treatment is then introduced into the test area only, and the dependent variable is measured in both an identical time period after the introduction of treatment. So the treatment effect is determined by subtracting the change in dependent variables in the control area from the change in the dependent variable in the test area. Next up, conclusion. There are several research designs, and the researchers must decide in advance of collection and analysis of data as to which design would prove to be more appropriate for this research project. He must give due weight to various points such as the types of universe and its nature, the objectives of the study, the resource list of the sampling framework, and the desired standard of accuracy, and when deciding the respect of the design for this research